So for our last topic here, we're going to talk about something called a control system. And maybe the best way of me describing this is these are known as like responses. Okay, humans have a few different systems in our body where we naturally respond without even having to think about it. And this is maybe a similar concept to it. Let me give you an example. If you fall asleep, your body naturally takes over and you still breathe. Does that make sense? Or there's another response in the body where if you hit the kneecap thing right there, it causes your knee to shoot out. Those are known as like responses. Plants have some similar responses as well. Maybe not in the exact same way, but it's kind of similar in theory. And they're all based on responses based on stimuli. Let me give you one more that the human body does as well. Your eyes, if you shine a bright light in them, you guys know how your pupils are actually supposed to like dilate and become smaller? Because otherwise there's too much light getting into your eyes. But if it's dark out, your pupils get really big. Right? Those are stimuli to responses. So in plants, there's two that I need you to know about. And the first one right here is kind of explained in these 2 bullet points. The words are phototropism. And this actually makes really like a lot of logical sense. I bet you, honestly, my 6-year-old already gets this. Plants grow towards the light. Which way do plants grow? Up. Where's the sun? Right? I got a couple of pictures to show you here. Here's one that kind of works here. We can actually see this one in plants here. If you were to take a plant and put like a light nearby it, the plant will actually grow in the direction of the light. But doesn't that make like the most logical sense in the world? Because what causes the plant to grow? Well, you need to have oxygen. Well, that's coming from everywhere. I lied. You don't need oxygen, do you? You need carbon dioxide. Sorry. You need water. Well, that's coming from your roots. But you need light, and that's coming from above, so the plant naturally tries to grow closer to the light because it's trying to get close to it, right? That's logical, right? So the words we use then are positive and negative phototropism. There are some things that grow towards the light, like, say, the top of the plant. But there's actually things that have negative phototropism as well. What grows away from the light? Roots. Yeah, that's why this next slide is right here. Your shoot system always tries to grow towards the light. Your root system actually always grows away from the light. Exactly. You guys know what sunflowers are? Big, tall ones with like a bunch of little seeds in the middle, very yellow. Sunflowers are notorious, and they're actually given the name sunflowers because the head of the sunflower always tries to face the sun. You can actually see the sunflower literally moving along with the sun sometimes, which is really cool because it has that ability to actually respond to a stimuli. There are some plants actually that respond to other stimuli, like say a Venus flytrap. Anyone ever heard of one of those ones before? Where it can actually close up? Yeah. If something touches it, it automatically closes, right? That's another one of those sorts of things that has like a stimuli and a response, right? And so the sunflower, going back to that one, a sunflower will actually, move along with the sun. There are some flowers that actually they will close up during nighttime and they will open up during the daytime. They'll actually retract themselves in the middle of the night. Right? So anyways, that is one example of a tropism. The other one is actually called a gravitropism. Okay? And gravitropism is basically the opposite. Gravitropism means that gravity is also a force that affects plants. And so if you have a positive gravitropism, those are things that grow towards gravity. So what grows towards gravity? Roots, yep. And what would have a negative gravitropism? Your stem, right? Or as we had right here, we call it the shoot system. So if I were to go back to this diagram and kind of add some labels here, here's how I might do this. This is going to have positive phototropism, but negative gravitropism, whereas the root systems, they have positive gravitropism and negative phototropism. My parents have a cabin out in BC, and there is a tree that when it was a really young little tree, it must have got knocked over by a snowstorm, and it started to grow sideways. And then after a while, it started to grow back upwards again. And it's got a really cool shape. I want to take a picture one of these days to show like Science 10 classes. But if you can imagine it, the tree kind of looks like this. The tree's got roots in the ground. The tree got blown over, and then it actually grows upwards again. It's the coolest tree in the world. And that really helps illustrate the idea of the grava and phototropisms, is that it wants to grow back up towards the light again. So I have a picture of one that's kind of like it. It's not as good as a real one. Like I want to show you like a picture of some trees out there that you've seen that have do this. But right, like if you were to take a plant and have a plant sideways, it would naturally eventually start to grow up and down. They all do. Which is kind of cool. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's a shame I can't throw it on the smartboard here, but is there a link I could type in? Oh, okay. It's just I'll be able to see it, I guess. Yeah, that's basically would be it. Yeah, yeah. He's got a tree, a plant that's like it's been growing, like it went in a circle, didn't it? Yeah. So somebody probably bent it little by little by little, and it always kept trying to grow back up again. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so now that we've discussed the terminology gravitropism and phototropism, the last thing I need to show you this unit is some scientists who investigated these concepts. So there's 3 scientists I'm going to need you guys to know, and you need to kind of add them to the list. Remember how in our first kind of section we talked about people like Francesco Redi, Louis Pasteur, Schleiden and Schwann, Virchow, some of those names. So add these guys to the list. The first are Charles Darwin and his son. And I love how Charles Darwin gets to be named, but his poor son is like just his son. Don't even know his name. I'm sure it's written down somewhere. But Charles Darwin, they wanted to figure out what caused this phototropic stimulus. So they did an experiment, and I want to kind of show you the experiment down here before I write about it. So they had light over here. So imagine that the sun was over on this side here, or maybe it wasn't even a sun. Maybe it was just some sort of lamp, because that could work too. Okay. So the sun is over here, and they discovered that it was starting to bend towards the sun. Well, then they manipulated something. They changed it, and they put a foil cap on top of the plant, just the very, very top of the plant, only on the tip. And they discovered that if you put a cap on top of the plant, it didn't bend. Then they put some foil around the middle of the plant, the stem, and they discovered, hey, it bent again. What would that imply to you then? Yeah. Yeah, the top of the plant is what senses the light. And so gravitropism still held, right? It still grew in up-down direction, but it wasn't able to, bend towards the light because the top seems to be where it is, right? So this line right here is basically what Braden mentioned. They inferred then that the tip was communicating with the area that was bending. Because is the tip of the plant right here, is it what's actually bending? No, it's right here and right here. That's what's bending. And so just like humans have a nervous system. What's a nervous system? What's the main focal point of your nervous system? The biggest organ? Your brain, right? Just like humans have a brain that sends a signal to your arms and legs and everything like that, it would seem that this right here, the tip, receives a signal, and the signal was sent to another part of the plant. Just like a nervous system does that, right? So that was that's what they inferred. Okay, second guy, Peter Boysen Jensen. He wanted to determine what is the signal that starts this phototropic response. He wanted to work on that signal a little bit and figure out, okay, how does it get there? So here was his experiment. Again, he had some light, but what he did is he cut the plant. He actually cut the plant in 2. And in one experiment, he used some gelatin. And the reason why he used a gelatin, is that it is permeable. Remember how we just did an experiment with permeable membranes? He used something that a signal should, in theory, go through. And then he did the exact same thing, only he used mica. Anybody know what mica is? It's a rock, basically. And because it's a rock, it's impermeable. A signal could not go through it. And he cut the plant and then tried to put it back together. Right? And his goal was to see whether after cutting the plant, it would still bend towards the light. If there was a permeable piece of jello in the middle here, then it did. And if you put a rock in between here, then it probably died. Nothing occurred anymore. Does that make sense? So what he was able to conclude then is right here. There must be a chemical involved with communicating between the tip and the area that starts to bend. Because remember, the area that's bending is right about here. So really, he just expanded on the Darwin. How would you pluralize Darwin? Darwin's. He experimented and added to the Darwin's work and figured out that there must be some sort of chemical involved in this. And I've got a slide here that kind of summarizes now both of these guys' experiments. So here's Darwin and Darwin, father and son, their experiment. The control variable, nothing changed. Cut the tip off, nothing happens. Cover the tip, nothing happens. Put the tip in a transparent cap, still able to bend. Cover up the stem, still bends anyways. So what did he conclude? These guys concluded the tip is really important. Well, Boyce and Jensen either put the jello block or the rock block in there and discovered there must be a signal being sent down the stem somehow, like a nervous system. And I love this picture here. This is kind of the reason why I want to use this slide right here. I think there's even a test question on this, on either your practice final or like your practice quiz or the final exam in this unit. The question is basically, what happens to the cells on both sides? The side that the light shines on compared to the side that the light doesn't shine on, what happens to the cell size? Say it. Yeah. If the sun shines on the cells, they're actually small cells. But if the sun does not shine on those cells as much, they're actually bigger cells. Yeah. So the cell size seems to depend on whether or not light hits it or not. Now, I think this kind of makes sense, though, because if sun is not hitting these cells over here as much, they probably are getting bigger because they're trying to put more chloroplasts in there. And so the cell size is getting larger due to needing more chloroplasts. Whereas these cells right here, these are factories that are so busy. There is so much sun hitting them that, remember that cytoplasmic streaming where they kind of move around in circles? Right? These guys, they got to pump in and out oxygen and carbon dioxide and sugar so fast that they got to be small little cells. Because the bigger the cell, the less effective it's going to be. Remember talking about surface area to volume ratio? Bigger cells have problems getting things in and out. Just like Calgary is a nightmare to drive in. I would much rather drive in Coaldale than in Calgary, right? Just because the city is so much bigger, right? So that's why we want a nice small little cell, because you can get things in and out so quickly. Okay. Last guy, his name was F.W. Wendt. He basically expanded on the previous two guys' knowledge, and he tried to figure out what the substance was. And I don't actually have information on exactly how he did it. I just need you to know like the results of his experiment. He did an experiment and he figured out what the chemical was. And he named it auxin, A-U-X-I-N. And he actually discovered it's a hormone, which is kind of cool because just like in humans, we have hormones, right? That send out signals to our bodies to, I don't know, whatever hormones do as, I don't want to talk about like teenagers, but right, like as you go through puberty, right? That's the classic example of hormones, right? Let me give maybe a non-teenager hormone example. When my wife is pregnant, right, hormones are notorious for people who are pregnant, right? It causes cravings. It causes like her feet to swell. Obviously, it causes like growth in her uterus as baby gets born, right? So those are hormones. Those are signals sent by your brain to the rest of your body, right? Hormones are also notorious in teenagers too, though, right? So, okay. That's actually it for our unit, guys. So let me give you a quick summary, and then I'll give you guys some work time. So today we talked about basically, I think, two main things. We talked about our tropisms. There's two you need to know. There's gravitropism, which gravity pulls roots down and naturally wants to have plants grow up. But plants don't necessarily just go in an upwards direction. They can bend towards where the light happens to be, right? And that's a phototropic response. The second half of my lesson discussed the idea of how this occurs. And basically, three scientists need to know: Boyce and Jensen, Wendt, and the Darwins. And they each kind of contributed a little bit along the way. Okay. So that was today's notes. Working backwards, let's talk about some of the other things you should know about. Topic 5 was a super long lesson all about what happens in a plant. Tons of definitions. You should know things like, let's see, should know about the pressure flow theory, phloem and xylem, and guard cells, and palisade tissue cells, and spongy tissue cells. And if I basically asked you, how does stuff get around a plant, you should be able to tell me about all the different tissues and cells that it has. So that was topic 5. Tomorrow we're going to reinforce that by watching the Magic School Bus video on it. Yeah, which will hopefully be kind of fun. So that'll take about half an hour, and it should be an easy way to earn a pretty good mark. Topic 4, before that, we would have talked about transportation methods that we have for cells. And we already talked about that earlier today. There are 6 I need you to know. Diffusion osmosis, facilitated diffusion, active transport, endo and exocytosis. You should know basically how do things get in and out of cells. How do they move? Okay. The topic before that was topic 3. It was also a long lesson, and it was all the different parts of a cell. So you should know about lysosomes and ribosomes, and Golgi apparatus, and endoplasmic reticulum, and nucleus, and mitochondria, and cell walls, and chloroplast, and all that stuff. Okay. That I want you guys to build a cell for, because that'll help you process all of that information. Topic 2 is all about microscopes. And so you should know about the different types of microscopes and what they accomplish, the differences between light and electron microscopes. And finally, topic 1 was all of the scientific contributions to the cell theory, which you should also know the 3 main points of the cell theory. Cells come from other cells. Cell is the basic building block of life. And for some reason, I'm blanking on the 3rd one, which is really bad that I've already forgotten it. So anyways, there's 3 parts to the cell theory. Cells make other cells. Cells the basic building block of life. Shoot, what's the other part of the cell theory? Well, I should find it, because if I can't remember it, I should look it for you real quick. What's the 3rd part of the cell theory? Oh, is it all organisms are made of cells? There it is. All organisms are made of cells. Who said that? Good for you. Good job. Because I forgot it. So, okay. And along with the cell theory, though, you should know all the scientific contributions that led to it, like Schleiden and Schwann and Virchow and Reddy and Hooke and all those peoples. So that's our unit, guys. Any questions? Okay, one last thought. I mentioned this before. I don't usually teach with a textbook because I usually find for the applied sciences like chem and physics that the textbook's not all that useful. I think you guys will find it worthwhile to read through here, especially as you do different projects. So if you haven't grabbed a textbook, go get one from Brendan the Learning Center at some point. We're doing Unit C, and it's probably worth you guys kind of reading through it, because even though I am going to tell you stuff, especially in these sorts of sciences like geology or environmental science or biology, there's going to be an expectation going forward, especially if you take Bio 20 and 30, that you got to do some reading as well. Because you can't just expect that the only thing you should know is what a teacher tells you, right? So I want to get you guys into a good habit of grab a textbook and just do some reading, and that's a great way of studying. So you're looking for chapters 7, 8, and 9, basically. So is that fair? So I will probably have some test questions now that are based on stuff out of your textbook. So, which is why I took the old ones off the last quiz, because I kind of didn't tell you about this. So, okay, any questions? Okay, so you guys have about half an hour today of work time. Tomorrow we're going to watch the Magic School Bus. And then next week I've got 3 days dedicated to you guys doing the 2 different projects. Please do them both. I mean, hopefully you'll get a good mark because of them, but also they're designed to help you build your learning and to do something fun. Because writing tests gets a little old, but building a cell out of Jell-O or out of Lego, that's kind of fun, right? Hopefully that's what it's meant to be. So. Okay, I'll shut up. That's all I've got. You guys are free to scatter if you want. Yeah, just go downstairs to Brenda and try to get one from her then. It is on environmental stuff, absolutely. Yeah.